Today. Now, going on to another political news, you have DeSantis ramping up the Trump critique. Interesting. He may move away some votes from Chris Christie. Now, he has this quick little video up here on the little DeSantis war room. And it looks like they actually have some text in front of it. So the DeSantis war room says, quote, DeSantis on Trump failing to acknowledge any mistakes made during COVID. He seems to be saying he would have done the same thing all over again. I guess they're quoting DeSantis in their quote, with me as president, if we have the, is he saying the same thing? I think they just transcribed the video, which is lazy. What?
You're going to have to be able.
You're going to have to be able. I guess maybe it is different, so I'll read it out loud. Quote, with me as president, if we have these circumstances, you're going to have people like Florida Surgeon General and Dr. Bajari. I'm going to listen to the people that got it right, but we would never repeat mistakes of the past. I think one difference between how he and I look at things, he really likes polls. He really cares about the polls. He wants to know what he's doing and is popular in the moment. He's obsessed with polling data. I don't give a rip about the polls. When I was making decisions about Florida, particularly at the front end of COVID, I was getting hammered. My public polling was going down, but at the end of the day, a leader's got to stand up and do what's right, unquote. Now, interestingly enough, on just a quick observational note here, it's hilarious. He says, oh, yeah, he only does things by the polls. I don't need the polls. Marty, where we're going, we don't need any polls. I don't know if you actually get the movie reference. Now, I would believe him more if he didn't acquiesce so much during the GOP debate previously. I think one of the most infamous moments from the debate is when the Fox anchors actually asked them, would you pardon Trump? Vivek actually raised his hand immediately without having to look around for any consensus or any peer pressure. DeSantis waited quite a bit, and you could see him looking around to see what his competitors were doing before he acquiesced, and he almost regrettably raised his hand. That sounds more, and again, that's an instance in time, very quick, stir in the moment. It seems like he's a follower, not a leader. And again, maybe that question, everyone should have known that question was going to come. Everyone is asking that same question on many news outlets. So they should have been prepared for that question, and either he wasn't prepared, or more accurately, I think he was surveying the room to see what the temperature and what the most popular opinion would be. Let me know in the comments if maybe I'm reading too into that instance. But I think that is a good representation, which to me shows you probably do care about the polls. But let's listen to his little video that he has here. And say all you want about DeSantis, at least he has the courtesy to suit up, as all men should. Unlike Fetterman, who wears gym shorts to our public offices, which, don't get me started on that fashion faux pas. Again, I'm no fashion leader, but I know when to suit up. Which, if you're a man, it'd be not always, but nearly always.
To make course corrections, and so to not acknowledge any of that, I think is a real question mark about if he could ever get elected again going forward. And I have my doubts about that. If these set of circumstances were presented to him, he seems to be saying he would do the same thing all over again. And here's the thing, Steve, and I'm the only candidate I think that will say this clearly. If we go back to March of 2020, knowing what we know now, we should not have done the Trump-Fauci lockdown policies. They were harmful. They were destructive. They didn't work. They should not have spent $4.5 trillion throughout 2020 with CARES Act 1 and 2. That set the stage for the inflation. That paid people not to work. That underwrote the blue state lockdowns. Knowing what we know now, we should not have done it. The U.S. government handled it wrong. That's just the fact. So with me as president, if we have these set of circumstances, you're going to have people around me like Latipo, Bhattacharya. I'm going to listen to the people that got it right. But we would never repeat the mistakes of the past. And I think, with Donald Trump, I think he thinks that those were the right policies. Now, he acts like he had no agency over the policies at the same time. But if he's in the same situation, what we do, I think he'd do it I think one difference between how he and I look at things, he really likes polls. He really cares about polls. He wants to know what he's doing is popular in the moment, and he's obsessed with polling data. I don't give a rip about the polls. When I was making decisions in Florida, particularly on the front end of COVID, I was getting hammered. My public polling was going down. But at the end of the day, a leader's got to stand up and do what's right. I cared more about protecting the jobs of the people I represented than I did about protecting my own political hide.
So at least he's quite articulate in what he was trying to say. People in the comments would probably insist perhaps I could learn a thing or two. Perhaps. Although I try to be a little bit more human and relatable than DeSantis, granted that bar is seemingly precipitously low. Now, in terms of the feedback, and again, he had some good points. I think more people than not would agree the United States should not have locked down and do many of the actions that they acquiesced to do during the peak of the pandemic. It was certainly terrible for the economy, and yes, more money was printed than ever before, which causes terrible inflation, which again is why we had to jack up the interest rates to solve the problem. I say we. That's why the government had to raise the interest rates to solve the problem that the government created. Though you could probably argue people voted for that, although I didn't, so. Now, in terms of the feedback directly in the comments, and the analytics of the video, it looks like within, what was this? That was actually within 4 hours. Let's see, video got 20,500 views and 656 likes. So, it's one of those instances where it's not a lot of views, but what's that ratio coming in at for the likes? Well, what's the calculator? Let's see here. Because that's 656 likes and 20,500 views. That actually comes in at pretty good, 3.2%. So in terms of like ratio, that is one of the most popular things DeSantis has posted. Or I guess more accurately in this case, it's the DeSantis War Room, but it's him speaking and it's his association. Now, looks like some of the top responses came from, one is Banana Republic, which these days is most certainly someone headquartered in the United States. Now, this person said, quote, "There's no better candidate than this man here, and it's not even close. There hasn't been someone with competent running in a long time. We are witnessing a rising star," unquote. And I actually did read that properly. The person's grammar was not on point, unfortunately. Now, this person got 99 views and 8 likes. So, not a lot of likes, but that's a phenomenal ratio. 8.08 ratio? That's phenomenal. Now, you also have someone by the name of Unfiltered Boss saying, quote, "DeSantis is dropping truth bombs," unquote. Getting 231 views and 17 likes. Even better. But the ratio went down a little bit to 7.36%. Now, I also have someone by the name of David saying, quote, "Says the man that locked down Florida. The federal government did not shut down anything. They can't. Federal government put out guidelines to follow for governors. DeSantis followed them to a T, but didn't have to," unquote. Now, that person got 99 views and 4 likes. So, not the best, but coming in at a ratio of 4.04%. So, still a pretty good ratio overall. But yes, that is something that I think a lot of people are going to point out. He did shut down. They were, I would argue, one of the quickest, if not the quickest, to open. Granted, there's some areas that never really did lock down to begin with, but they're one of the quickest to reopen. And it'll be interesting to see, does this message resonate? It seems like towards the beginning, DeSantis was much more neutral towards Trump, and he slowly started to more and more address it specifically and started to do more direct comparisons and start to politically attack him, which I think in the beginning perhaps he was worried about offending Trump fans and people who would vote for Trump, because depending on how the Trump circumstances go with, we'll call it political witch hunt or political prosecution or persecution, if he's in jail or if he's taken off the ballot, there's a lot of uncertainty, which again, people might in and of itself call it election rigging. But if someone can't vote for Trump, but you're insulted by DeSantis, then you might vote for the competition for the presidential primary or even the general election. You might even switch parties for the general election depending on who is nominated. Now, this political strategy, I think, is prudent because he's going to take votes away from Chris Christie. Chris Christie's whole shtick, his whole message is, I'm not Trump, I hate Trump, Trump bad. Which actually, that was perhaps more articulate and intelligent than anything Chris Christie has said. Moderate burn. Though, it wouldn't hurt too much, there's a lot of surface area there. But it's one of those instances where that's been his political messaging, and it's got Chris Christie on these debate stages. It's actually helped him gather those votes, because there are people in the Republican Party who will never vote for Trump. I think they're pejoratively known as never Trumpers, or maybe they prefer that title, but that's a group of voters that you can gather if you have that messaging, and maybe this will help DeSantis move some of those towards the direction, as DeSantis is trying to close that gap between him and Trump in all these preliminary primary polls, and he wants to get the nominee. And of course, the primary voting is going to determine that. So it'll be interesting. Let me know in the comments, overall, will this be a net positive for DeSantis? Is this a good move on the political chessboard? Or might this shoot DeSantis, might he be shooting himself in the foot, and maybe he'll get less voters for him? Or will it decrease the number of people who would likely be able to vote for him because they don't appreciate what they perceive as a tax on him? It'll be interesting to see how he does as the next polls come out. But as I always say, time shall tell. Thank you everyone for taking the time to tune in. Again, I know it's ambitious trying to get to 4,000 subscribers by the end of September, so if you can click that button, I would greatly appreciate it. Also, the comments help the channel grow and develop. All the critique is greatly appreciated as I try to do everything from enunciate more, slowing down my voice, and still searching for better software so we can do the picture-in-picture with the video. I tried another one, but I don't know if it's because of my newer 4K camera. It keeps crashing. So if you have suggestions, I would greatly appreciate them. And of course, don't forget to take the time to like the video because that helps with the algorithm and gives me feedback on if I need to maybe do something a little bit better. And also, don't forget to take the time to tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, heck, tell your enemies, tell anyone and everyone. Just stay safe and fight the good fight.